Chiefs fans, we have an interesting video for you today. We are going to talk about Mahomes' production over time compared with the quality of his roster. So we're going to answer this question of, is Mahomes getting worse, or what exactly is happening with this Chiefs team, and why does it seem like it's getting more and more difficult for the Chiefs to move the ball down the field consistently as Mahomes has gotten older and advanced in his career? I'm your host, Gary McKenzie. Welcome here at RGR Football, the best place for Chiefs content on YouTube. Not necessarily speaking about myself. I'm more or less referring to Ryan and Dan. Those two are legends. They do a great job. They brought me on board, and I'm glad to be here. So I want to talk about this question of Mahomes' production over the years as it relates to the roster he's been playing with. And I think this is going to shed some light on some interesting things about what to expect for 2025. So starting in 2018, when Mahomes first got to the league, that roster was stacked. I took the top three receivers, the tight end position, and the running back position, as well as the offensive line. I graded all of those out for every year, gave them a GPA, and then looked at Mahomes' production. So that's what you can see on the screen here. So in 2018, the average GPA for the Chiefs offense was 3.5 out of 4. That's very good. In fact, this was the best roster Mahomes had through his entire career thus far. Tyreek Hill gets an A for wide receiver 1. Sammy Watkins gets an A for wide receiver 2. Chris Conley got a C for wide receiver 3. And then Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt both got A's. And the offensive line at the time was anchored by Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. They got a B. The offensive coordinator at the time was Eric Bieniemy. And Mahomes had an unbelievable season. Threw for over 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So this was Mahomes' breakout year, obviously, in 2018. This was the best roster he played with. So we're kind of starting this trend of showing how the roster has some impact on what Mahomes' production has been. Moving to 2019, the average GPA for the Chiefs offense was 3.17. And the notable changes are Mecole Hardman at the wide receiver 3 position. He received a grade of B, in my opinion, for wide receiver 3. And then Damian Williams at the running back position. As you know, this is the year that Kareem Hunt was removed from the roster because of his behavior. And then the offensive line got a C because they had lost some pieces along the way. That year, Mahomes saw a marked drop in his production. So you go from a 3.5 overall GPA for your offensive roster down to a 3.17. Mahomes lost about 1,000 yards of production. Of course, he was injured for 4 games that year. He only threw for 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, which is very impressive, and then a rating of 105.3. So moving on to 2020, they had the exact same GPA as they did in 2019, and very similar results, except Mahomes played a full season. So the only changes between 2019 and 2020 are that Demarcus Robinson kind of solidified himself as wide receiver 3, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire was on his rookie year, and then the offensive line stayed about the same. So Mahomes that year threw for 4,740 yards, 38 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 108.2 rating. Very productive season. So once again, the Chiefs offense above a 3.0 GPA. Then in 2021, the offensive quality, the players on the team dropped down to if I can get it lined up here, down to a 3.0 GPA. So it's a B average. Tyreek Hill still on the roster, but Mecole Hardman was forced to become wide receiver 2 that year, and he got a C grade, comparatively speaking, compared to other wide receiver 2s. Demarcus Robinson kept that wide receiver 3 role. He got a grade of B. Kelce, of course, gets another grade of A. Clyde Edwards-Helaire's second year got a grade of C. This was the first year where the Chiefs started to make improvements along the offensive line. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty darn good. They got a B. That year, Mahomes, once again, threw for upper 4,000 yards, closer to 5,000 yards like he did in 2020. 37 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, a rating of 98.5. Then in 2022, this is where we start to see the Chiefs start to drop in terms of the quality of their offensive players. In 2022, wide receiver 1 was Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a C grade. That's not a very good wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 2 is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Grade of C. Not the best wide receiver 2. Mecole Hardman, wide receiver 3. Decent wide receiver 3 that year, gave him a grade of B. Kelsey, of course, gets a grade of A. Pacheco gets a grade of B. And then offensive line gets a grade of B as well. So there's a very improved offensive line from a couple years prior where they had that Super Bowl debacle in 2020. Mahomes went off in 2022. Threw for 5,250 yards, 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 105.2 quarterback rating. Of all of Mahomes' seasons, 2022 was the season in which he produced the most over what was expected from his roster. So he got more out of 2022's roster, comparatively speaking, than he has in any other year. The average GPA for 2022's roster was 2.83 for their offensive roster. And in addition to that, they were number 1 in scoring offense in the NFL that year. Mahomes elevated that roster to an unbelievable level, and no one saw it coming. I didn't see it coming. I thought the Chiefs' offense would be good, but with their weapons, I did not think that they would be number 1 that year in offense. Yet there they were. This was also Eric Bieniemy's last season as offensive coordinator in Kansas City. And there's a demarcation line between 2022 and 2023 in the Chiefs' production. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So Matt Nagy takes over in 2023. He becomes the offensive coordinator, and the Chiefs are rolling with a rookie wide receiver at the wide receiver 1 position in 2023 with Rashee Rice. Now, Rashee Rice, I think, is going to be awesome. He was my draft crush that year. I was so happy the Chiefs got him. He has that trifecta that I like to see in draft players where he has the athleticism, he has the production, and he has the size and the tape. So he had that trifecta that I really believe in terms of evaluating players out of college, and I think that once he's healthy this year, if he can play the full year, he's going to easily be a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with his suspension. That might put a damper on that, but I still think he's going to have a very good year in 2025 whenever he is healthy and able to play. Wide receiver 2 in 2023 was Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He gets a C. Wide receiver 3 was Justin Watson. He gets a C. Travis Kelce still gets an A. Pacheco still gets a B. The offensive line was upgraded to an A. So in totality, the Chiefs had one of the best offensive lines in 2023. Make no mistake about it. Average GPA for the Chiefs offense in 2023 was 2.83. And Mahomes' numbers were quite lackluster by his standards. Barely over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 92.6 quarterback rating. And once again, Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator in 2023. Moving on to 2024. The Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver in 2024 was Xavier Worthy. Now, I love Xavier Worthy, so don't take this D grade personally, but this is a smaller rookie wide receiver who is going to fill a niche role for the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a very productive niche role, but this is not the guy that you want to be your number 1 wide receiver. Not a rookie, not coming into the situation he was coming into, so I gave him a grade of D because he also had to ramp up throughout the year. Now, he finished the year very strong, and I am very high on Xavier Worthy, but as a number 1 wide receiver, I am not. DeAndre Hopkins is wide receiver number 2. Wasn't even picked up until the season was almost halfway done. He gets a grade of B. Justin Watson continued to have a little bit of a downward trajectory through his career. He gets a D. Travis Kelce, no longer an A-level tight end in 2024, in my opinion. He kind of took a step back. He gets a grade of B. Kareem Hunt, I gave him a C because he was always moving forward, but the Chiefs had one of the lowest yards per rush attempt totals in 2024, so we could have well done worse than that. And then the offensive line got a B. The average Chiefs GPA in 2024 offensively was 2.33. This is by far the worst number Mahomes has ever had, and that was reflected in his production. He had a bad year, didn't even throw for 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 93.5. And once again, Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator. 2025 is a different story. Let me update my table here. I have the Chiefs' offensive unit as a whole being the best it's been since 2019 and 2020. I say this because I think Rashee Rice at wide receiver 1 is an A. He gets an A grade. Xavier Worthy in his second year as wide receiver 2, he gets a B. Hollywood Brown as a wide receiver 3, he gets a B. Travis Kelce, 1 year older, he still gets a B though. Isaiah Pacheco and the other players they have touting the running back room for the Chiefs, I think that group gets a B. The offensive line gets a B. So across the board, this is the best offensive group the Chiefs will have had as long as no one gets injured since 2019 and 2020. This is why I'm very bullish on Mahomes having a great year in 2025. I think he's going to have a revitalization of his production, and it's going to be very good to see for Kansas City, and it's also going to make Mahomes very happy and the rest of the Chiefs fans very happy because he's going to have a great year, in my opinion, in 2025. Now, if he does not have a great year in 2025, you have to look at that line of demarcation between 2022 and 2023 where Matt Nagy became the offensive coordinator again and things seem to fall downhill. If you remember, Nagy was the Chiefs coordinator in 2016 and 2017, and he had a monster year out of Alex Smith in 2017. That's how he got the coaching job in Chicago. So don't forget, Matt Nagy has done it before. He has exceeded expectations before, but he hasn't done it with Mahomes. And this leads me to a larger point that I mentioned earlier in the video, is that Matt Nagy's background is in business. He eventually came through the football scene, but he had a background in business. And if you know people who have backgrounds in business, there's different styles of how they want to approach their work and making money. And I would say the majority of business people, the majority of investors who are successful have a very risk-averse strategy. I think Matt Nagy also has this risk-averse strategy. I also think that's why he was able to do so well with Alex Smith, but not Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith's style of play lended itself nicely to a risk-averse approach, a risk-averse style of coaching. Mahomes, on the other hand, he needs a little more aggression. He needs a little more risk-taking. He needs a little more calculated and guided risk, whereas if you're entirely risk-averse, you are not going to take those challenges. You're not going to take those risks, and I think Mahomes needs a little more of that. Anything you know about Eric Bieniemy, he is a very aggressive offensive coordinator. Aggression is his thing, and I think that blended nicely with Mahomes. So if the Chiefs do not have a top 5 offense in 2025 with this roster, if they stay healthy, in my opinion, there is no question you have to let Matt Nagy go. There's no question about it. I will be pounding the table to let Matt Nagy go if they do not have a top 5 offense in 2025. This roster is good enough to do that. This is the best roster the Chiefs will have had since 2019 and 2020. And so let's get it done. Let's move the ball. Let's have a great offensive year in 2025. And I think that's what's going to happen. Remember, in 2024, the Chiefs were wanting to try to stretch the field a little more and let Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice eat underneath, and then the whole team got decimated by injuries. They still made the Super Bowl, amazingly. But this is the get-right year, in my opinion. This is the year where it all comes together, and hopefully they can stay healthy. Now's your time in the comments to let me know whether or not you think the Chiefs can get it done in 2025. Do you think they will be a top 5 offensive unit again? Do you think it will be a renaissance year for Mahomes, or do you have more faith in Matt Nagy dragging this offense down with his risk-averse style and causing the Chiefs not to reach their full potential? And do you think that after this season, the Chiefs will not be top 5 in offense and Matt Nagy should be fired? Now's your chance in the comments. And then, as always, since you've made it this far through the video, if you like the content, hit that like button. And then also make sure to subscribe if you have not done so already. We love having you here. I've got nothing but love and respect for all of y'all. But this is Gary signing out. I got to end this video. Y'all take care. I hope you thought this was interesting.